everyone, and welcome to Marketing Showcase on Demand. This is your chance to catch up on all of the great content that was recorded from September's online event. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Sherratt, Director of SPA Professional Academy, a SIM accredited study centre. He's presenting Optimising Your Digital Marketing Performance. It's a great talk, so sit back, relax and enjoy.
Thanks for joining us for this session here on optimising your digital marketing content. As Ashley just said, I'm Andy Sherratt from SPA Professional Academy. We are a CIM accredited study centre delivering marketing qualification courses from entry-level marketing, people that are just starting out in their career, right up to those that are moving into a board level or just taken on a board level marketing position. So we've got qualifications at all levels, and some of them concentrate on digital marketing, with others that look at broader marketing skills, including the digital within them. So the presentation I'm doing today, Optimising the Digital Marketing, is actually largely taken from it's extracts from one of the diploma level modules of CIM's qualification, and it is a module entitled Digital Optimisation. Really great module, really helps to get a great understanding of how to do digital marketing as well as possible. And so I'm taking some bits out of it for this presentation and looking at the core elements of optimizing a digital strategy, digital marketing. We'll start off with looking at understanding your customer, and we'll look at what a customer persona is and what we mean by that. I then want to think, when we understand our customers, we then need to understand the behavior of those customers, the journey that our customers go through. So we'll have a look at how we understand a customer's journey, followed by, once we know who the customer is and how they behave, how do we optimize the conversion rates, matching the behavior of our customers. So those are the areas that I want to run through in this relatively short presentation that we've got here. So what is a customer persona? Well, a definition of a persona is that it is this thumbnail study. And so it's a little snapshot of the characteristics of typical website users, either or both of the people that are our current customers, but also those who we would like to be our customers. Now, we look within the persona, it identifies their characteristics, what their needs are, what motivates them in terms of web usage and purchasing and all those other stages of the journey. But also, what's the kind of environment are they operating within? Now, customer personas can be seen as being a little bit kind of twee, because one of the things with a customer persona is that it's always a good idea actually to give them a name, each persona a name. And we might have a few personas for our organization. So we could have Joe and we could have Chris as our personas. And when used well, people in the organization get to know Joe and they get to know Chris, and they can use that name and everybody understands, oh, that's this persona we've got. Now, to people who aren't familiar with it, it can seem a little bit odd talking about somebody that very fictional character, but it really helps everybody in the organization, or just if you're a marketing department of one or two, to understand that typical user of it. So this thumbnail study works really well to gain that understanding. It's putting it together, but it's the content that really matters of that persona. So how do we understand our target customers, our current customers, to create these personas? Well, we need to use as much data as we possibly can do to make sure that that persona is realistic and true and really demonstrates their actual characteristics, etc., as I just talked about. So in terms of the data-driven personas, we can get a lot of data from web analytics. Now, whether that's the Google Analytics that many organizations use, if you look in Google Analytics, you'll see that it tells you some of the basic demographic type data for our customers or visitors to the website. And we can find out how long they stay on the site, which pages they visit and things like that. So that gives us a good amount of data about some of the personas that we have. We can do market research, traditional market research techniques, online and offline, to really help us understand our customers, understand who they are and how they behave. Now, there's a lot of data available generally that means that we don't need necessarily to talk to customers, but doing that research to find sources that will say, well, actually, we know this is some of the characteristics, what are some more that typically relate to them? So market research will help. Social media can be fantastic because we can learn so much about things like motivations and needs through the social conversations that our typical customer personas might have, what they say, how they behave, and again, the motivations and so on will come through in some of those conversations. But also if putting together personas, think about offline conversations. So what do we learn about our customers when they maybe telephone us, or if we meet them at a real live event like Marketing Showcase? You know, what about those conversations that we can have offline as well as online, where we learn about customers? In those phone calls, those face-to-face conversations, we can learn so much about the personas. So use that data as well. Use demographic data. I mentioned it's part of the analytics. But whatever demographic data, that really helps us to use other sources to gain information about the personas. And look at the conversion data that we've got. So what typical characteristics are there of the people that go through the journey with us, that convert by registering for more details and purchasing, or all of those other stages? Really understand the people through that, using that conversion data, which characteristics of people do go through those stages. So there's some of the data sources we can use for our personas. There's 3 elements in particular that we want to look at for really understanding and building the personas, for understanding our digital customers. First off, the one I've talked about already, the demographics, the age, sex, and all of the other things. I often refer to it in terms of marketing as being that with the demographics, if you take all of the bits that in HR terms, you can't discriminate on when employing somebody, marketers use as characteristic elements for it. Does that mean marketers discriminate? Probably is, actually, because the reality is that they might make people behave differently. And if that's the case, it's not discrimination, it's matching their behavior. So demographic data is important, as is the psychographics, what people's interests, influences, and motivations are. So the more we can understand about the psychographics of our personas, the target customers, the better positioned we are to deliver the right solutions for them. Right. And then a probably made up word, I guess you could say all words are made up, but a kind of marketing speak made up word of the Webographics. Now, this is a really important part. If we're trying to optimize our digital marketing, we've got to understand Webographics. So what do we mean by Webographics? What are we looking at in this situation? Well, an obvious one is people's internet usage. We need to understand as much as we possibly can about the internet usage, internet, World Wide Web, however we look at it, of our target customer group. So when do they use the internet? How do they use the internet? What are they looking for? And what is their usage of it? How much a day? Do they use it on mobiles, or are they using computers? Really get great understanding of how they use the internet. What kind of web pages do they look at, and how do they get to those web pages? Really important to understand social media usage. Do people use social media? And if so, which platforms are they using on social media? We get the obvious big difference potentially between personal and business use of social media, with generally LinkedIn being the major business use platform. But when it comes to personal use, there's big crossovers happening now anyway, that people use what might be seen as consumer individual social media sites for business purposes and happily use them on that basis. But do people use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? Are they LinkedIn, Twitter users, whatever? Really got to get that understanding, because we can only optimize if we know which platforms people are on. So how do they use it? What are they using it for? Do they just browse, or are they posters? What kind of websites are our users visiting? We can often get data about what site they were on before they visited ours, what site do they go to when they leave it, and there's something. Cookie data enables a lot more potentially to be learnt about that as well. So what kind of websites are the personas using for it? Important to understand what browser they use, because obviously we need to optimize our offer to suit the browsers they use. So whether they're using Chrome, Safari, whatever Microsoft are calling their Internet Explorer, I've forgotten the name of it right now, or whether it's a Android browser because they're using mobile and things. So really understanding that, so that we can make sure absolutely that our content is optimized for the browser, for the screen size they use, and all sorts of things like that as well to go along with it. Search behavior is another really important one. How do people search? Now, 95+% of people in the UK use Google as their default search engine. So that's one point. But actually, how are they using it? Are they searching by putting a couple of words in, or are they using what's known as the long tail search of typing a whole sentence in to see what comes out? What is the typical search behavior of our users? Are they using a web search, or are they searching using YouTube or Facebook, or other methods of search? Because YouTube is generally seen as the second most popular search engine in many countries around the world, actually. So what is the search behavior? How do they go about searching? Very important to understand devices used. So is it desktop, laptop, tablet, mobile? And if it's mobile, is it Android or is it iOS? And similar with other sort of things. What devices and platforms are people using to access the internet and anything online? So that's another point to consider as Webographics. And actually really important to understand, what time of the day are people looking for the kind of things that we're offering? If it's B2B, it's more likely to take place during working hours. But actually it's amazing how many people still then sort of 9, 10 o'clock at night think, oh, I needed to do that for work, let's have a look at it. But you need to understand that. What time of day do people look at those sort of things? It can be really critical for social media posting, obviously, is that when are people on social media, to make sure that they actually spot whatever it is that we're doing. And the final one on here, it doesn't mean this is all of the elements for Webographics, but duration. How long do people spend online and through all of the different methodologies of online that exist? So there's some thoughts there on areas to look at in terms of what's known as I say, Webographics, to really understand what people are doing with their online behavior. That if we've got that helps us to define, we understand the primary users, we've got all that information. We need to define who our primary users are. So we'll say, okay, well, here's Joe, here's Chris. There are two main personas. We've got a few others here as well, but these are the two we really need to concentrate on. And what are their goals and what are their behaviors in terms of the areas that I've just been talking about? And that really helps us to start out our optimization journey in terms of really, if we understand their goals, what are they trying to achieve, then we can start to build digital output that is appropriate for that. But we have to understand the journey. What is the journey that our customers, our typical customers, take when interacting or potentially interacting with us for what we're offering? And this can be broken really simplistically into 3 stages of the journey. A pre-purchase experience. What happens? What does the customer do to find out about us, to gain information about options before making a purchase? So there's that pre-purchase experience. And the way we interact is really important at that stage. Then there's the actual purchase experience. So what actually happens during that part of their journey when they are directly interacting to make a purchase with us, from us, whether that's online or offline. We have to integrate offline elements with the online digital optimization element. And for many organizations, Spark Professional Academy included, the actual purchase takes place offline, if you like, for it. We don't have that online sales element for it. Some of it is, some of it's not, but integrating all of those points becomes critical. I better just say there, when I'm talking about digital optimization, there's a good reason that we want to do it the way we do, and it works really well for us, and other organizations can be different because that suits their methodologies. But the next stage of the journey is the post-purchase experience, that building of the relationship, making sure that people are happy, so that hopefully they come back to think about buying again, or transacting again with the next requirement they might have. So breaking the journey down into those 3 areas and really making sure we think about the purchase experience and the post-purchase, not just how do we get them to us, is really critical. But we need to map the full journey. We really need to think about that very first thought of need identification, or whatever terminology we put on it, that makes somebody think, oh, I need such and such. In my instance, oh, I need to improve my marketing ability. Maybe I could get a qualification in it. From that point onwards, or even what triggers that point, right through to they've purchased, they're building that longer term relationship, they've gone through that journey with it. So we need to map that full journey. And within that journey mapping, of thinking about all of the touch points, and I'll move on and give some suggestions of touch points in a moment. What are all the touch points that our customers might have along that journey that will lead to them taking the next step with it? And of course, some of those touch points are going to be online, but we do need to consider any of the offline touch points that there might be with it. But it's very rare that journey is linear. It goes all over the place, and it has some circular elements. If we're talking journey-wise, there are some roundabouts along the way. And some of those roundabouts, I make reasonably regular journeys to France, and I came to the conclusion a while ago that one of the typical things, any lengthy French journey is not complete without going round a roundabout about 3 or 4 times while you try and figure where to go next. Actually, a customer's journey is often like that. They're not quite sure where to go, and they'll keep going round a certain point. And we need to understand that as being part of it, because actually, if we can make it easy for them to find the right exit off that roundabout through our digital activity, then it gets them to the next stage of the journey quicker and with more satisfaction. So incorporating things like that, find where the roundabouts are, because that might really help. So map the full journey. But in terms of the touch points, what sort of things are we thinking about here? We're looking at where that customer has any form of interaction with us as an organization. What are those touch points? And that can include online and offline stores. If we have physical stores, a visit to our store is a touch point. And whether that's a retail store or a B2B type store, it's a touch point that people might have. Contact center, if they ring us to ask a question, even if they use an online chat that goes through to a contact center, that is a touch point. What is happening at that? Why are people using those touch points for it? In digital terms, obviously the website we've got becomes a key touch point for many organizations. There are some who websites aren't relevant, but it is very likely to be, as is our social presence. Again, any form of social media presence the organization has, that can be a key touch point. Again, thinking about the mobile ones, do they use an app? Have we got an app that people might use to learn more? Thinking of that as a touch point becomes critical. And one that's easy to overlook, but really important to think about, is any form of review sites. So there's the obvious ones for the hospitality industry of things like TripAdvisor, but it might be that even an Amazon review, even if somebody's not looking to, we're not using Amazon, but there might be an Amazon review that gives something about it. Google reviews, Trustpilot, all of those. Think about all the review sites, because they are an important touch point. You might have seen it yourself. If you're looking to find out about a product and you type it into a search tool, it might come up with the word review as being an option there. So think about where people might end up for that. But what you need to do is think about the touch points. Consider the touch points for your ideal persona, not just your current customers, but what about those touch points for the people you would like to be customers? What are they using? Learn as much as you can about those, in addition to the understanding the real touch points of your current customers. So there's a few areas that we really need to consider in terms of that customer journey, things that we need to be looking out for it. One of those is the tasks. What is the task that that persona is carrying out at the point of that touch point? What's the purpose of their visit to that touch point? Why are they doing it? What do they want to do? Is it to learn information? Is it to find out where they can purchase it? Is it to see what other people have thought about it in terms of reviews? So what's the purpose of their visit is something we need to consider. What are the questions there? What do we want? What do users want to know? So what is it that they are using that touch point or whatever to find out information about? And how can we make that easy? Sometimes a frequently asked questions section will answer some of that, but actually sometimes it might be, I want to know more, but I'm not sure quite how to word it. How do I contact a person, giving them the, so making it easy for them to find the phone number to get to it. What do users want to know at that stage? So we've got to consider that. Emotional elements are quite significant. What is the user feeling? What are they feeling at that point of making that journey, in that journey? Are they excited about purchasing something, or is it, oh God, I've got to purchase this. I didn't really want to have to spend that money. What's the best option for me for it? So are they in, where are they in that emotional state? Is really important to make sure that we can reflect that as much as possible in terms of what we offer and how we offer it to them at that point. We also need to think about the influences, beyond what we can do, that the customer will be considering at that point. So what are the other elements that are impacting on their decision making at that stage? Are the people, is it our competitors? Yeah, is it social media influencers, it can be for some. But what are the elements that are influencing on the process of making a decision at that stage, so that we're conscious of that and we can build on those influences and utilize them to benefit us if possible, if necessary. There's 4 areas there that are really important considerations for that customer journey. So how do we then take all of that to optimize our delivery? Well, one of the things I realized, I've been teaching marketing qualifications and involved in marketing for many decades now. And one of the things I realized once I started really looking into kind of the more, if you like, written academic type stuff about marketing is, if you want to ever become a marketing author with any renown, you have to come up with something that either puts together lots of words starting with the same letter, or a really great acronym. I'm going to use one here that is there's a few variants of 4 C's. You've no doubt heard of the marketing 7 P's and all sorts of things like that. There is a 4C model that is different. I've even seen a 12C model for international marketing. I think that one was. But a different 4 C's here for optimizing digital delivery, optimizing digital content for us. So first one of those, consistency. It's really important that we have consistency of brand imagery, messaging, tone of voice, etc., across all potential interactions, that all the brand interactions that there might be. So we need to make sure that wherever a customer persona comes across us as an organization, that the messaging and the way that messaging is delivered is consistent, because that builds a reassurance about the organization. It takes away potential confusion about, oh, well, I thought they were saying that before and now I'm seeing this. I'm not sure what this means. We need to customize content. Now, customizing, it can be used in 2 ways. One is obviously the more we learn about a customer, the more we can customize content to suit what we've learned about them as an individual, which, say, Amazon is the classic example of an organization doing that really well, that everybody's homepage on Amazon, if you're logged in, is going to be different to anybody else's. But the other element of customization that is really important is to vary over time what we are offering. So we're customizing it and making sure that what we have in terms of digital content is current and topical. Now, I will say there, at the time of doing this, I think the use of COVID, coronavirus or whatever has actually been overdone and is topical in probably a negative way for many people. But making sure that we're reflecting current situations, environments, etc., is really important. So customizing our content so that it varies over time to show currency, validity at this stage is important. Third C, commitment. Every organization, no matter how big it is, has a limitation on its resources. So if we're going to use a digital platform, whatever that digital platform is, we must make sure that we commit to using it, make sure that we use that platform well. And basically what I mean by that is maintaining and updating our presence on that platform. It's actually much better not to use a platform than to use a platform by putting something on it and leaving it there and not doing anything else for the next 5 years. So only use digital elements, digital platforms that we can commit to. That means getting senior management commitment to doing it, broader organizational commitment to produce content and so on, to go along with whatever is appropriate for that platform. So if we're going to use video, make sure we commit to it and we produce a certain amount of video on an ongoing basis. Committing on that sort of principle is really important. And the final C on here is caution. And that means taking caution in terms of how we respond to all of those things that can happen digitally. Digital has that great ability to be absolutely immediate, but sometimes we can be too immediate. We can respond to things too quickly as well. So the caution is considering the responses that we might make in terms of whatever is happening digitally. A particular area I would think of in terms of that is, what about a vocal, if it's social media, a vocal critic of something that we might suggest or be involved in? When it comes to people that actively, regularly post online, there are actually quite a small percentage of people that are really active in terms of posting. And they do tend to be at kind of extremes, one end or the other in terms of their views. So be careful in responding, a bit of caution for responding, because the views of those people may not reflect the majority of people's views. And it can be easy to respond to those without it being the right response for the majority of our users. So that's why really understanding the persona counts, because actually is that vocal critic that's posting, are they representative of what we're really looking for in terms of our customers? And if not, then sometimes pandering to the vocal critic could be negative in terms of who we really want as a persona. So that's the fourth C there, is just be a bit cautious of what we do. And I mentioned within that content, how do we optimize our digital marketing is through content, so creation and delivery of content. And content takes many forms. The most obvious one is the text, that in particular on a web page, because that is key content that we need to go back to that point I said about search behavior to make sure text matches what people are looking for. That's a really important element of content for optimizing. But images are really important. People search for images, make sure we've got the right alt text with images to help people find them for that. But images are important content, and we need to optimize those images to match our customers and what they want. Audio is a really important content tool these days, through things like podcasts. Over this year, while people have had a lot of time, the number of podcasts has exploded massively, and some people have had a lot more time to listen to podcasts. I tend to listen to podcasts in the car. I've not been driving so much this year, so I'm way behind on listening to my podcast, but very important content in many contexts. People use audio a lot more than used to be the case. Video, another great content format. In many contexts, video exploding, whether it's short form, 30-second, 1 minute video, or through to the much longer form that exists there. Live content as well, so live streaming of events or whatever, live streaming of things that are taking on is valid content, webinars and so on. What can we offer on that sort of basis? Again, more content. And tools that we can incorporate on a website. So if we sell flooring, can we do a calculator tool that people put in dimensions and it says, oh, you need this much flooring, for example. So how can we help people through their customer journey by a tool that makes it easy for them to understand what they need? So I want to finish off with a content checklist in terms of, well, what do we really need out of this? Because if we get all our content right, we can package it up in a box and deliver a fantastic content package to our target persona. So use of image there. There's a bit of content obviously in that one. So what do we need for good content? It's got to be credible. It's got to be credible in terms of the general category we operate in, and in particular credible offer, if you like, and I mean that in the broadest sense of the word offer, credible for our organization. Content is fantastic if it's shareable. We want word of mouth, word of mouse even. We want people to share that content. So thinking of our content, whether that's video, audio, or whatever, in a way that's shareable, provided we're not needing it it's not the income stream we've got, obviously, but then we want snippets that become shareable to encourage people to use it. Essentially, people do things online and offline that are either useful to them, beneficial because they need to do it, it's useful, or just because it's fun. So think about, are our personas wanting useful or fun? And is there a way maybe to combine the two? Not everything needs to be fun, but some things can be. And if we can link that together, that's really helpful. It has to be of interest to people. Even if we're purely looking for something that is maybe very much a work role or something where it's very serious, it still has to have enough interest to get people engaged and wanting to learn more and find out. So make sure the content is interesting and relevant. Again, that comes back to, well, what's the motivations of our persona to make sure that the content is relevant to what they're trying to do. Also needs to be timely. We have to have our content available at the time that people want it. And that's why I may sometimes throw caution to the wind maybe and just make sure something is out there at the time. But we've got to make sure that content is available in a timely manner for people. And ideally, it needs to be different as well. We've got to have a point of differentiation, a point of competitive advantage over all of the other offers that there are out there. And so content that is different, that shows variation in a positive light, of course, is very important. And just the final point in terms of that content should be on brand. We're back to the consistent element there and authentic to the values of the organization that we are representing through that content. So think about all of those points in terms of your content, making sure that they reflect what that customer persona does. We need to, and I should have said a little bit more about that on the previous slide, what if we understand that persona's behavior, we'll know whether images, audio, or whatever are the right form of content. And whatever we do, ticking off against this content checklist to make sure that we're really meeting that persona's needs is absolutely key. So that finishes my presentation there. Thanks very much for watching. My contact details are on there. If you've got any questions, want to know more, either go through Marketing Showcase, and I'm sure Ashley will pass any comments on to me, but also happy for people to get in touch at any point. And I love talking about marketing and digital marketing with people, so always happy to receive some questions. But yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Andrew, thanks very much for that. Great presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our visitors again. I've got a quick question for you. If you're going to give our marketers one place to start from your talk, where would it be?
The start point absolutely has to be understanding the customer. Getting that, the elements I said in the definition of the persona, understanding their needs, their motivations and things, because without that understanding, then we can't possibly build the right digital elements for them. We can't optimize digital if we don't know who it is that we're optimizing it for.
Of course. Okay, brilliant. Guys, thank you very much for signing in and watching this one. Andrew mentioned if you want to continue the conversation, he's a great guy to speak to about marketing and digital marketing and all things in that sphere. So please do reach out to him. I'm going to do a little shameless plug. We record these webinars once a month. So we've got an event on the 13th of October, following that in the middle of November, and one at the start of December. We've got lots of great speakers talking on new content. I'm sure Andrew will be popping up there amongst some other guys. So please do check the website out and register for your free tickets. Apart from that, that's me signing out. Have a great day.